Okay, today we're going to learn about writing linear equations in point-slope form. And remember, point-slope form looks different from y equals mx plus b. It's y minus y1 is equal to the value of your slope times the difference of x minus x1. So we're going to learn what all of those pieces mean and how to write our equation. So your read-will statement, write linear equations in two variables in various forms, including y minus y1 is equal to the value of slope times the difference of x and x1. That is given 1 point in a slope and given 2 points. So we're going to be given the same information that we used in our last lesson, but we're going to be writing it in a different linear equation format. And that format is point-slope form. So here is the formula. So m is going to represent your slope. And then x1 and y1, those are different from this x and this y. These x and y values have to come from the point or the ordered pair that you are given. So x1 is really going to be your x value from the ordered pair. You're not going to replace just the x. You want to see this y and this x in your final answer. Okay, and this y1 value is going to be the y value from your ordered pair. Now notice, this is subtraction, and so we're really going to have to pay attention to this operation, because if this operation is positive, it's telling us that our y value and our x value in our ordered pair are negative. That's what would change this subtraction sign. Okay, so you're really going to have to think about this when we start writing our equations here in a minute. Okay. So why do we use point slope? Well, remember, when we talked about identifying slope, these are two pieces of information that I can look at my equation and see. I can see the slope and I can see the point when it is written in this format. And that point may not always be the y-intercept. So I'm going to choose this format to write my equation because it's really easy if I'm given the slope or I can find it, okay? And I have at least 1 point, an ordered pair. And remember, we're going to use the x value as our input value, and it's going to go in for x1, and we're going to use the y as our output value, and it's going to replace the y1 in the formula. So let's look at some examples, and let's see what we're really talking about here. Okay, so I want to identify the slope and the point. So remember, we've done this since we started working with slope. So remember, x marks the slope. So I'm going to put that on here. X marks the slope. Okay, so we're going to be looking for x in our equations, because in this format we can still use our eyes and we can see our slope. We don't have to do any rearranging. Okay, so I've identified x, which means my slope is 3/4. And since this is positive, this is telling me that my linear equation would be slanted upward. All right, now let's look at here. Now I can look at the point, the x and y, and remember, x is really going to be where x1 is. So it's not this x, it's this x right here. So this would be x1. And remember, I want this to be a subtraction sign. Well, if it changed to a positive, what's going to cause a subtraction sign to change to a positive addition symbol? Another negative. So this is really telling me that the x value in my ordered pair is really a -4, because x minus a -4 is going to change to x plus 4. So here we go. And then I want to find my y1 value, which is here. And notice that this is a -2, which means nothing is going to change a negative, because remember, I want to see a subtraction sign here. So that means that this 2, its sign is positive, because a positive is not going to change a subtraction sign. So my ordered pair is the point -4, 2. All right, let's look at another one. All right, again, marking the slope. There's my x, which means my slope value is -3. And it's really -3 over a change in x of 1. And because my slope value is negative, it tells me that my line is slanting downward. And now I want to find my ordered pair that I can find from just looking at my point slope form. All right, so my x value is going to be inside the parentheses with my x. And if I see subtraction, I know that that number is my x value. It's just a +1. Now I'm going to look at my y value. So that's a positive 1. And remember, if it changes to an addition sign, it's telling you that your value is negative. So this is really a negative 1 because that y minus a negative 1 is going to change to y plus 1. All right, let's look at the next example. Again, I'm identifying slope. X marks the slope. So the number being multiplied by x is my slope. So my slope is a negative 2. And then remember, if it's a whole number, that means your change in x is always 1. And since it's got a negative sign, it's telling me my line is slanting downward. I always want to be connecting it to what the graph would look like, even if they didn't give me the graph picture. And now I'm going to look for my ordered pair, my point. So I want to look for that x and y value. And my x value is inside the parentheses, and I notice that that is subtraction, so it's telling me my x is a positive 1 when I write the ordered pair. And now I'm looking for my y value, and this is over here with the y. It's addition, which tells me my y value has to be negative, so it's a negative 3, because a negative is what's going to change a subtraction into a positive, because I want this to be y minus. Y minus a negative 3 is going to change to y plus 3. All right, let's look at the last one. X marks the slope. So there's my x, so my slope is a negative 1/2. And again, since my slope value is negative, it's telling me my line is slanting downward. And now I want to determine what my ordered pair is. So I'm going to look for my x and y value. Okay, and I notice I have no parentheses here. There is no value, but there really is. Isn't it an invisible 0? Because if I have a 0 here, do I have to show the 0? No, I don't. So my x value for my ordered pair is really 0. And now I want to look at my y value. My y value is over here. And I notice it's y minus, which tells me that this 2 for my point is a positive 2. And if I remember from my intercepts lesson, if my x value is 0, this is telling me that this is a y-intercept. So this point right here is a y-intercept point. And I could now, since I have my y-intercept, my b value, so remember your y-intercept is your b value. If I have my m and my b, I could write this as a slope-intercept, y equals mx plus b form. But we're not working on that in this lesson. We're only focusing on point slope format. So now we're going to look at our next example, which is how do I write this y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1 when I am given a slope and a point. Okay, so there is nothing to do. We are simply going to go straight to our format. And remember, our final answer has to be in this y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1 format. Okay, and we're going to replace m with the slope. The x1 is going to be replaced with our input value from our ordered pair, and our y1 is going to be replaced with the output value. So I just have to pick those pieces of information out from what they gave me and then plug them in. I will want to see this y and x in my final answer. I will want to see parentheses, and then depending on the signs of my input and output values, this subtraction could change to addition. So let's go pick. Okay, well we see that this is our slope. So this is going to go in for m. So I'm going to have 8/3. I'm going to go ahead and write out. I've got equals, I've got parentheses, I'm going to have the x, and I'm going to have the y in my final answer. Okay, so let's fill in my input value. Okay, well my input, my x1, is going to be a -3. So that's going to be minus, and then I'm going to plug in a -3 for that. Well, what do you have really when you have minus a negative number? It is really going to change to a positive. Okay, now I'm going to take care of my output. So I'm going to have y minus, and now I need to figure out what my output is. Well, my output is my y value of the ordered pair, the second number in the parentheses. So I'm going to have y minus a -4, because remember that subtraction sign is not the negative sign on my output value. It's kind of like the slope. I still need to see the subtraction. However, we don't want to write our final answer with two operation signs. So minus a negative really means that I am adding 4. So there is my final answer. My point slope format is y plus 4 is equal to 8/3 times the value of the sum of x and 3. And there's my answer. That's it. So when they give you a point and a slope, you just plug them in and you have your final answer. All right, let's look here at this next one. So again, I want to write my final answer in y minus y1 times the value of my slope times the difference of x and x1. That's going to be my final output answer. And again, m is your slope. x1 is your input value from your ordered pair. And the y1, that is your output value from your ordered pair. All right, so we're going to now start plugging in. So I know my slope, it's 5/3. So I'm going to have 5/3. Here, I'm going to go ahead and write my parentheses, x minus, and then I'm going to write y minus, and I'm going to plug in. Okay, next thing I'm looking for is my input value. So it's my x value of my ordered pair, -4. So I'm going to write -4, but when we subtract a negative, that really means it's addition. So it's going to look like x plus 4 in my final answer. And now I'm going to look for my output value. So my y1 value is going to be the output value of my point, and it's -5. And in my final answer, am I going to see two negative signs beside each other? No. So y minus a -5 in my final answer is really going to look like y plus 5. I just need to know when I write my ordered pair that 5 is really a negative. And there is my final point slope format. Okay, let's look at now, what do I do when I have 2 points? How do I do this? Okay, well, the first thing we're going to need is we are going to need our slope. So remember that's y minus y over x minus x. And then we're going to plug in a point. So we're going to need an x and a y value. Okay, so let's find our slope. We can find our slope from 2 points. We've been doing that for a while now. So I'm going to do y minus y, so it's going to be -4 and -1, and I'm going to subtract. And then I'm going to do the same thing with my x values. I'm going to have -5 and -4, and then it's going to be minus. So now I'm going to do some math. So I've got -4 minus -1, and that is equal to -3. And then my denominator, -5 minus -4, and that's going to be -1. Okay, now I got to simplify my ratio. So I'm going to press the buttons to make a fraction. I'm going to say -3 divided by or over -1 is going to simplify to a +3, which if I remember correctly, positive means my line would be slanting upward.